Hi, welcome. Today is October 23rd. It's Friday, Fact Check Friday, and I've got a great one for you today. It deals with something that happened last night in the debate. Now, as you may know, many people refer to me as the world's greatest fact checker, and if you agree, hit the like button. Today, we're going to talk about super predators and whether or not Joe Biden used that term, came up in the debate last night. But not only that, I'm going to compare different fact-checking organizations, big media companies, and see how they did on this particular fact check. But then I want you to hang around to the later part of the video because I'm going to talk about a persuasion technique that is being used in this by media companies, but also in the debate last night. This persuasion technique, once you understand it, you're going to be better to understand how politicians are manipulating you. So stick around for that. But first, I want to start off with the New York Times. So the New York Times put out a number of fact checks about the debate last night. This particular one is from Stephanie Saul. Quote, "He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community and he called them super predators, and he said it, super predators." And they attribute that quote to Mr. Trump. Now, this is something that the New York Times often does. They refer to President Trump as Mr. Trump as some kind of diss, I suppose. But they claim that this is false. Mr. Trump had said repeatedly that Mr. Biden used the term super predators in reference to criminals during debate over the 1994 crime bill. Mr. Biden never used the term. However, it was used by Hillary Clinton, then First Lady. And that's what the New York Times is doing here. There is more to this story and there is more context, but you wouldn't know this if you were reading the New York Times because they're not explaining it fully. And once I show you a few more fact checks, you'll understand why. Next, we have PolitiFact. Trump says Biden called black Americans super predators when he wrote the 94 crime bill. No evidence. In 1993, Biden gave a speech on the Senate floor in which he said the country should focus on young people who had no supervision or opportunities. Otherwise, they'd become predators in 15 years from now. He said, Biden did not single out black Americans. Madam President, we have predators on our streets, and society has, in fact, because of this neglect, created that, he said, according to the congressional record. The term super predators refers to something Hillary Clinton said in 1996, referring to a gang of kids. She did not specifically say super predators were black Americans, but decades later, Clinton apologized for the comment. And this is interesting. What PolitiFact does here is it says that Biden did not single out black Americans in that speech. Well, I challenge you to watch this speech and to think that he is not talking about young black men, then you're totally naive because that is the tone and everything about the way that he's talking. That is what he is referencing. He did not specifically say black, but I challenge you to watch this and think otherwise.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street.
Next up, we've got Snopes, and they say that this claim is mostly false. They say what's true. While speaking in the Senate in 1993 in favor of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, Biden referred to young people who have become criminals as predators. What's false is Biden did not use the term super predator, nor did he specifically refer to black people. It was Hillary Clinton. And so Snopes is saying that this is mostly false. And I guess we can debate about what the rating should be, but at least Snopes does something here that the New York Times did not do, And they put it into a little context and actually tell you that Biden referred to young people who've become criminals as predators. That is important to know, and that was omitted from the New York Times.
Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized.
Now, next up, we have factcheck.org, and they are terrible with their fact checks. They just do a laundry list. Here, they have a bullet point. It just says, Trump wrongly attributed the term super predators to Biden. It was Hillary Clinton, not Biden, who applied the term to some gangs of kids. Now, factcheck.org is not giving you any context, is not talking about what Biden actually said, referring to young criminals as predators. That's important context that should be included in any kind of fact check. But factcheck.org decided that that wasn't important enough to share with you.
They will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created.
Now we move on to CNN. Trump falsely claims Biden called black community super predators. I don't think Trump used the term community at all, but CNN put it in their headline. They say, facts first. This is false. Biden never called blacks super predators. They talk about how Hillary Clinton used that term. It says, but Biden himself rejected the theory of super predators? That's not true. It says in 1997 hearing, arguing that most youth in the justice system weren't violent, Biden said most youth weren't super predators. Well, let's look at that right there. Biden says that most youth aren't super predators. So therefore, he's rejecting the theory of super predators? That makes no logical sense, but this is CNN, and CNN makes no logical sense either. And in fact, this fact check's a little bit different than a story that they did 1 year ago, where they have a video and they have the clips from Biden speaking about this bill, where he says that there are predators on our streets who are beyond the pale. Now, I challenge anyone to watch this and not find it really prejudiced, really inflammatory. In fact, I think if you took this speech that Biden gave here and you were to play it for a group of people protesting Black Lives Matter, there's no way that they would want to support Joe Biden, because the way that he spoke in this is beyond the pale.
They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society.
Now, what I saw was the best fact-checking was done by NBC. It says, fact check, Trump claims Biden called black Americans super predators. And it goes on to put things in context. It says, Biden did warn of predators on a floor speech in support of his bill. And it goes on to say that this bill, the result of this bill was that many black men were incarcerated at a much higher rate than anyone else. And so NBC, I think, does a good job of explaining what Biden actually said and putting it into context, something that a lot of the other fact-checking organizations did not do. But in this respect, did Biden use the term super predators? He didn't. So technically, that would be false. He didn't use that term. He did use the term predators. And so super predators, that's an exaggeration of what he actually said. But does it make it totally false? Does it make it half false? Well, I'll leave that up to you. But now I want to talk about the reason that Trump used this term and the reason that he keeps repeating this, because he knows that this is not true. He said this before, and I'm sure that someone's told him that that is not true, that he didn't say super predators. So why would he be using that term? Well, the reason is this is a persuasion technique. And what you do in this persuasion technique is you exaggerate something to draw attention to it. So in this case, Trump is saying that Biden called young black men super predators to get attention about it. So even when you look into it and you find out, oh no, he just called them predators, well, now you know that Joe Biden called young black men predators. And that is a technique. Now, I don't really care for this, but it's done all the time. That's what advertising is. You exaggerate things to draw attention to them. You might not live up to it, but you've drawn someone's attention to it. So, for example, let's say you went out to eat and it was really expensive and you wanted to really draw attention to that. You can say, oh, that place was so much, we paid $200 for our appetizer. And you think, well, that can't be true. You look it up and you're like, oh, the appetizers were $40. Okay. You've drawn attention to it. And then once people look into it, they see that it's still pretty expensive. So that's a persuasion technique. For example, let's say you want to draw attention to someone being really strong. You could say that, oh yeah, that guy deadlifted 1,500 pounds. And you look into it and you go, no, he deadlifted 700 pounds. It wasn't 1,500 pounds, but it's still a lot, right? So that's a technique that you can use. You draw attention to something by exaggerating it. So even when they find out that it's not exactly right, you're still drawing attention to it. And I think that that's what Trump was doing in this case. He knows that Joe Biden didn't say super predators. He knows that that was Hillary, but he did so to draw attention to it. And it worked. Now, I would prefer if people could just be straight with us, that they could just not lie and just not exaggerate. But this technique is proven to use, and it's something that you can use. Once you understand how this is done, you can use it yourself to draw attention to something that you want someone to pay attention to. So, can you think of any other examples of when someone has exaggerated something to draw attention to it? If you can, let me know in the comments. Hope you have an awesome weekend. Peace.